you're live now. All right, welcome everybody to our very first episode of Hackers On, a show where we discuss hackers and hacker culture in popular media. We talk about what went well in that media, what went wrong, the good, the bad, the funny, the outlandish. I would expect some fights here, especially between Michael and I, because we don't have the same movie tastes.
Do not.
Oh, by the way, I'm Vermin, everybody. This is Michael, and today we have an awesome guest, Caroline Stevens.
Howdy, everybody.
Caroline, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, just a little bit about yourself in general.
So I am, let's see, I come from a GRC advisory type background, working a little bit more into the tech space. I've done some physical security, some wireless, a little bit of everything, kind of like jack of all trades. So currently I work for a consulting firm and kind of help them with some of their program building, etc. Again, hoping to move a little bit more and sharpen my tech skills slightly bit. I am based out of Kentucky. I've probably met a lot of people listening now through DerbyCon, which you'll see that lovely poster on the wall. Nice shout out to Dave and the crew. So yeah, I've been doing the tech thing for a little bit. I'm one of those people that come from that controversial background of, I didn't necessarily come from a computer science background. My background comes mostly from social sciences. I don't have a ton of certs, but I do have a lot of higher education. So I don't know, just a little bit of everything.
You know, I really dislike that mentality of like, you have to come from a computer science or networking or some kind of tech background in order to be good at the information security realm. It is not true at all. I've met individuals who were real estate agents. I met a postal worker who delivered mail. I used to work on aircraft. I was a grease monkey working on aircraft. Now we're working in information security. That's like completely opposite of each other.
So I found that coming from that background has helped me a lot more. I think that it's helped me as far as the tech space, not come in with a bunch of preconceived notions or ideas about how things are supposed to work. So, I mean, I think that if you've got the interest, the tenacity, and the curiosity, obviously, not to sound too hokey, that'll get you pretty far, more than just having, I mean, obviously there are basic skills that you pick up and you hone, but I don't think, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I find that if you come from a non-tech background or a background that really you wouldn't expect somebody to come into information security from, right? Like, I know somebody who was a chef who's now a hacker. It allows for divergent thinking. You haven't had pounded in your head like, hey, this system should work this way and only this way ever. You have a lot more freedom to think outside of the box, and naturally you will just think outside the box because you're like, well, I didn't have that hammered in my head. Why can't it work this way? I did a web app pen test on a company once, and I was able to make their application crash. It was a test application on one of their test servers multiple times, and the developers kept going like, no, it shouldn't ever work that way, shouldn't work that way. And I had to like pull the developer over and sit him down and go, look, I just made it crash again. Here's your proof.
Yeah, and I think that being able to convey that is real helpful too. You know, they aren't joking where soft skills, even though it doesn't necessarily come easy to a lot of people. Um, but I think that in this day and age, people want to know the why behind the why, and you've just got to be able to be able to be a good speaker and kind of convey these ideas and connect the dots because people are really a lot more big picture now and not so granular. They expect you to know the granularity, but they want to know, you know, how it's going to touch things in a more holistic sense.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
You have any opinions on this, Mike?
No, I mean I agree. It's coming from similar background of maintenance before getting into cybersecurity. I think it helps kind of just give you a different mindset than somebody who was kind of fast tracked through a computer background to get into this. So maintenance, you're trying to fix stuff, but at the same time figure out how easy stuff is broken whenever it comes back to you. You're like, oh, they did this to break it. Like, well, they shouldn't be able to do that. And it gives you that idea of looking at stuff a different way.
Right on. Well, my first big question for our guest, Caroline, which kind of feeds into the movie Hackers. What inspired you yourself to get into the information security realm?
So I think that my foray into it was a little bit different. Again, my education comes from knowledge transfer, behavioral systems, kind of not necessarily fully HR, but the humanistic part of industry, learning how people think, why they do what they do, and how that fits into enterprise structures. So that, of course, was kind of a good foray into advisory and GRC. And yeah, some of the policy stuff can get a little dry at times, but there's a reason why we have the structure put in place. And it also helps to kind of learn about the human element of the business that you're running and how that touches the client base as well. So I'm very interested in the people side of it, hence why I find things like the social engineering and the physical aspect very fulfilling.
Nice. So, Michael,
Mm-hmm.
what inspired you to get into the information security world?
So I kind of always saw it as being something very interesting. I did a lot of jobs kind of before getting into this thing. A lot of them helped feed to just to pay for school to be able to get into get my degree in it. But growing up, I always had an interest in computers. Always enjoyed kind of taking stuff apart, figuring out how it worked and how to either fix it or change it. And so I feel like that tinkering and that just tinkering and enjoying just computers in general kind of helped feed into this career field for me.
So, I'm not gonna lie. This movie was actually an inspiration for me to get into the information security realm. It may sound very hokey and cheesy, but the hacker culture, things like Neuromancer, Snow Crash, hackers, Sneakers, as terrible as that movie is, which we're going to cover that one
Actually.
day. That's such a great movie. But all of that kind of media, I was kind of an outsider as a kid. and that was very much media of outsiders finding like a place to be.
Yeah.
And so I'd always strived to like wanting to be part of that community. And then also, the tinkering, trying to figure out like how things work and how to make them not work.
That was always the fun part.
My aunts and uncles used to give me their old computers growing up because we were very, very, very poor. And so I would go digging through the file systems and like try to figure out how to do different things. I remember being a kid and plugging my computer up to the telephone line and discovering like, oh hey, like if I use the Windows dialer, I can actually like eavesdrop in on my sister's phone calls going on.
Naughty boys.
That's great.
Just things like that had inspired me, and then I remember having friends who had VHS tapes of hackers, and we would all sit around and watch the VHS together and yell, "Hack the planet!" So this movie is...
I was going to say, coming from like a latchkey kid background, that was always two things, because like you mentioned the books and things like that, like Gibson's books and whatnot. My parents always made sure, we didn't have a ton of cash, but like they always, anytime we wanted books or, they were not, I wouldn't say tech savvy, but we always had, different consoles and computers and things like that. So we always had, access to stuff like that. So it was definitely probably played a key in it as well.
Gibson's books were such a huge impact on my life.
Did you ever read Dahlgren?
No, I have not read Dahlgren.
It's a really good one if you like Gibson stuff. I'll have to, the next time we have a con, if we do ever again, I'll bring you a copy for you to read, and I want your opinion on it. I think you'll like it.
I miss con culture. So much I miss con culture. Darn you, COVID.
We'll get back there. It'll happen. It's got to.
Yeah, it was so sad that we couldn't go to Circle City Con this past year, and we're not going to be able to go to Circle City Con again this year.
Yeah.
All right, but on to the movie.
Hackers.
So, starting with Carolyn, what are your favorite moments of this movie?
So, like, the one thing that sticks out with this movie that I enjoy is really kind of the campiness of it. Just to where, they're playing loosely with, the seriousness of what all is happening at the time. I mean, the political ramifications, whatnot, but that they still have some of that underlying kind of John Hughes-ish type tension and full of hokey jokes and things like that. So probably most of the time that I enjoy it is when they're like cracking on each other, because that really makes me feel like I'm around my fellow friends and things like that. It's what brings it all into focus. So
yeah, they do get the busting of the chops down very well.
I have to say they enjoyed high school a lot more than I did. I couldn't stand high school.
And can you believe they had a pool on their roof?
That was
Right.
amazing. It's New York City for you.
They got all the money at this fancy New York schools. What was your favorite parts in the movie, Michael?
Honestly, I'd have to agree. It's I first watched it probably 10, 15 years ago. I was way behind the curve. Watching it when it came out, and wife and I sat down and I rewatched it last night. And I would have to say the campiness of it. The movie definitely doesn't take itself seriously, which definitely made it more enjoyable to watch. Because there were definitely, we'll talk about the cringeworthy moments, but the campiness helped kind of tamper down some of the cringeworthy stuff.
Yeah, I was a big fan of like the call outs throughout the movie. So like they talk about like the Gibson, like gotta score yourself a Gibson, gotta get that sweet Gibson hack. Which was a Gibson system actually doesn't exist, but it was a call out to William Gibson.
Yeah.
And then I really enjoyed how he did with the social engineering at the beginning of the movie. He called up the security guard and he just started rambling onto him and like throwing all these abbreviations at him and throwing like this urgency of like, hey, I gotta get this report done. And if I don't get this report done tonight, then oh man, I'm like my balls are gonna be on the chopping block.
Mr. Nagasaki, was it?
Yeah, Mr. Nagasaki.
Kawasaki.
And so that was like a really good social engineering that he did because A, he confused the individual by overloading him with information, right? And then after he overloaded him with the information, he then also threw at him a deadline and an urgency. And he was like, hey, I got to get this. Please help me. Really appealing to the individual's humanity, thus letting him into the system and getting the information he needed for hacking the system and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought it was some good social engineering that I've personally done myself before.
Well, and I love how like the call outs for that have kind of fed into other, movies and series going forward. Because I don't know, have you all seen Banshee? It was a short-lived show that I guess it came out maybe 2014, something like that. But one of my favorite hackers ever was in that series. He was a trans male who worked with some of the criminal element there, and he was a hacker. And like towards the end, he was like the most notorious hacker that these other people were trying to catch. And I mean, he even ran lines like "you mess with the best," and things like it. There was a lot of symbolism in that. So I think that it's pretty cool to watch something like that kind of get amplified through other shows as well. So
I have not seen that, but I just typed that down for myself to go watch.
His name is Job in the series. Check it out. Hoon is the fellow who plays him, and it is just absolutely one of my top of all time favorite hacker TV type scenario people. So awesome.
Another thing that I really liked about that movie was like establishing the hacker nickname culture. Right, we all have handles now. We all have some kind of call sign that we go by.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of people who have great handles because that was something that I was never good at naming myself. I don't know. I was never good at figuring out stuff like that.
Are you the Joey of the group?
I'm not that bad. I think that if I had to, do it and knew that people would like ceaselessly just like rag on me like they did Joey, I think that I could probably come up with something a lot better with that, because I did roller derby, so I kind of had to have my feet to the fire for figuring out names for that. But it's just not something that comes natural to me. I have to be under pressure to get
Can
it
I
out.
forever call you Master of Disaster?
I'd rather you not.
What was your roller derby handle?
So it was actually Lita Ford, and it was completely spelled out in leet speak too. So I'm
Nice.
probably
So that
dating
could
myself
work.
horribly right now.
Lita Battle Angel?
No, like Lita Ford was like in the 80s. She was like a kind of the hair metal era. She was like one of the, queens of rock at that time. She actually played in The Runaways with Joan Jett in the 70s.
Oh, right
But
on.
then went on to have a career of her own at another time. So, yeah.
So something else that I really liked about that movie was the all of the different quotes that we were able to take away and like put into our current culture. You had said it earlier, with how there's that show where it's quoting the lines, mess with the best, die like the rest, and whatnot. That was one of my favorite things about that movie is that so many of the lines and the quotes now are like part of our hacker culture.
Yeah, some of the sans challenges that have been out there definitely incorporate in the movie Hackers. You have passwords that are like Hack the Planet or Gibson or Zero Cool or something along those lines kind of thrown in there. So even if you haven't seen the movie, you're getting the references.
All right, let's discuss the bad. I started with Carolyn, so I'm going to start with Michael this time.
This is a Hollywood movie that I depiction of them coming out. Like seeing all these graphical screens, swimming past them and all of these, moving objects and stuff, and then, but towards the end of the film, where they're able to pull the garbage file, Dade's character, Crash Override, it's like, Joey's the closest. Just go to root dot, whatever dot whatever. Like that's you're not, it bugged me. One, because Joey had already been to the file, like he'd already seen where the file was, so all of them going through just trying to get to this one path, annoyed me. Or he's trying to find the file and it takes him 20-30 minutes. Like, Joey just could have told him, hey, this is where I found it. But again, it's Hollywood, so.
You don't like how in that scene the phone booths are spinning in the middle of everybody?
I mean,
that lets you know that they're elite hacking.
Yeah, I mean, visually it looked cool, but the depiction of actually happening is just very annoying to me. You and I have talked about this before with Mr. Robot. You're watching Elliot actually typing onto a keyboard and seeing actual commands come through, and seeing something that's true to form, and then rewatching Hackers and going like, there's 3D graphics on command line. No.
When I get to my comments, I'll talk about that.
Okay.
Carolyn, what is your what are the things you hated about it?
So, not to beat a dead horse or be that person, but just the whole aspect of the negging and the angry women proving themselves in front of the keyboard, just that kind of undertone. I get when you're in high school, you kind of, when you have a love interest type story or whatever, that feeds into it somewhat. But I think they went a little bit over the top with that. I think they probably could have dialed that down just a hair.
I completely agree with you. I was rewatching it the other day to prepare for this episode, and when she was playing that, when Angelina Jolie was playing the video game, and Crash Override comes up to her and is like, "Well, that's a good score for a girl."
Yeah.
I heard that line and I was like, "What the hell do you mean by that?"
Well, yeah,
And
and
he
the whole
plays the
thing
game.
about not believing that it could be a guy that wasn't a guy that was her handle, and that whole. I mean, we know this stuff does happen in real life still, unfortunately, but I think that it really took away from her computer or from her character, and the fact that she didn't really have so many touches to do some interesting stuff because she was too busy playing the foil to his character. I don't know.
Yeah, and they took her character and they had the opportunity to make her like a really strong female role, right? She could have been this amazing tech savvy female who people could have who young girls could have honestly have looked up to, right? And just made her.
Well, because obviously she worked in conjunction with the rest of the group really well. To think that just this one new person would like change that dynamic, and then all of a sudden she had to become the alpha or whatever of the group. I really think that it kind of makes you wonder if before he came to town, if what they really worked on together when they were together outside of school and whatnot.
Yeah, and if your friends are able to turn that quickly and stop looking at you as like this mentor and somebody who's elite and somebody who's a really great individual, tech savvy and skill wise, and all of a sudden just like start backing this other random person who just shows up, like they're not really that good of friends of yours.
Right, nobody else was having to prove their skills, right? Throughout the whole thing, except the two of them.
Except Joey.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, Joey. Nobody likes Joey.
You're right. Nobody else was having to prove that they could.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. That is kind of a terrible aspect of the movie. I had noticed that again through my watch through. And I wish that wasn't the case. I wish she had a stronger character who her skills were just trusted, and she was looked at as an elite individual without having to prove herself.
Yeah. Again, that would have been a different movie, though. Hollywood.
All right, so my best of what I disliked. The representation of the technology. I thought it was wildly outlandish. You had touched on it earlier about how like the code flying through and stuff, and then swimming through the visuals. The server room was a bunch of like glass panels.
Yeah.
With like etching on it. And electricity like going up the glass panels. If your server room has electricity jumping from server to server, get out.
Yeah, that's gonna blow.
Something is wrong. And then also they kind of just randomly toss terminology out. So like when they're looking at God being awake and using the terminal, they're like, God shouldn't be awake this late and working this late. Let's echo the terminal and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean echoing the terminal? It doesn't make a lot of sense what you just said there. And then going back to what you were talking about and how I said I'd come back to it. it kind of ties into that random terminology I absolutely hate, but I absolutely love at the same time when the hackers are doing the hack in the subway and the phone booths are rotating, and you have the person standing in the back and they're like, "We got a cookie monster! I'll feed it a cookie!
Give it a
We got a
flu shot."
virus! Give it an injection!"
Yeah, it did set the
Rabbit
stage for the
solution.
hacker montage, didn't it?
Yeah.
It did. It was just absolutely ridiculous, just yelling out things, and you see like Pac-Man waka 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 waka, like eating data and stuff, and you're like, what is? None of this is what happens.
I want to know what kind of console the Plague had, where you just randomly hit like Atari buttons and it kicks them out of the server.
Probably the same one they used in Weird Science.
Weird Science. Should we cover Weird Science in a future episode?
I think you
I
should.
think there's several shows or movies we should. Yeah.
I think if you love social engineering, you should totally cover Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and have Snow on as your guest.
Now, do you mean Snow or Snowden Snow?
No, as in Snow.
I don't think we could ever get Snowden on here.
Yeah, I don't think he
Probably not.
probably has much of an opinion on Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but that could be me completely, characterizing him.
I had talked to Jason Street about Snowden, because Jason Street goes all over the world doing different talks and stuff. And he tried really hard to get Snowden to hang out with him, and he just could not get him to hang out with him at all.
Yeah, I can't even put myself into his mindset. I can't even step into his shoes to see how his relationships with people from now, from that point in time on, how he even navigates that.
You have to be paranoid constantly, 24/7.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, getting off the subject of that one, 'cause that's a whole rabbit hole.
That was a hard turn.
Where do you think this movie goes? Where do you think this movie accurately portrays the hacker culture? Caroline first.
It's not like I was hanging out in New York City at that time, but I feel like the pieces that do feel consistent would be, the hacker spaces that they're hanging out with people doing different things at the same time within the space that may not all just be related to computer hacking. The music of the time, obviously the clothing, a lot of the pop culture stuff. I think that they really had a good pulse on that. But if you've read up on any of that or you've heard any of the extraneous information on it, they did do a little bit of groundwork to pull all that together. So it would make sense. It would be kind of missing the mark pretty big time if they had messed up that portion of it.
Michael, where do you think they went well, or what they got right with hacker culture?
I mean, I'd have to agree. The music, kind of at the time, for me,
Just the music?
Yeah, just that's all they got right. And I'm not even a big fan of the music. But I kind of remember, growing up in the '90s, the LAN parties, right? So kind of just that hanging out and as a group, and we weren't hacking back then, but I just feel like that kind of connection between other people, whether you had a lot in common with them or not, you found a couple things in common and then you hung out, and so I feel like they did a good job of kind of bringing all those different characters together who, on paper wouldn't necessarily hang out. So
I kind of liked how they showed the pirating culture of the hacker community back then. So serial killer, whenever like one of the first introductions to serial killer, you see him like having the different tapes that he's trying to sell on the street.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is indicative of the hacker culture, where like information is free, and so we're gonna create our own playlists and things like that. We're gonna have our own servers where people can like watch movies from and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty accurate representation of the hacker culture, that pirating subculture,
Well, I have to say, aside from it not being very gender diverse, they were very culturally diverse. So that was a nice to see, especially even for the time, when that wasn't really something that people thought about necessarily covering all, aspects of that in film. I thought that was definitely I give it a thumbs up for that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The hacker community is very culturally diverse. It doesn't matter what your race, creed, or ethnicity is. Like, if you got skills, you're one of us, period.
Yeah. They even talk about that in the manifesto of the film, right? Hold up now. We exist without skin color, nationality, religious bias. We call us criminals. Our crime is curiosity. Like, even they're talking about it. Like, it doesn't matter. When you're behind a keyboard, it doesn't matter. Any of that, what any of that stuff is.
I actually have a copy of that hacker manifesto that every organization I work at, I just like pin up and like have in my office space.
Nice.
I love that scene when they read off that hacker manifesto. All right. Any last thoughts on this masterpiece of a film, Michael?
It was a film. They definitely spent money on it to make it. No, in the end, look, it wasn't a bad movie. It was definitely a campy, cheesy movie that I can appreciate, even if I don't like. So, yeah. Would I watch it again? Probably not for a long time. I think, like I said, it's been about 10 or 15 years since I've last watched it. This week was the first time in that since then. So maybe another 10 or 15 years before I watch it again. But it was good. I for what it was good.
Carolyn?
So, like, this is just like one of those, because I've seen it so many times, and because, it's just like a connector between people. Because, I mean, you can go and meet somebody and odds are that, they have seen the film, or they can, pop off a quote, or, laugh about something with it. It's almost like listening to a tape, or just having something that you pop in when you want something in the background, or something fun to have when you've got a group of friends around. It's for entertainment's sake, it's a great movie. So, and again, to kind of be able to reach back when you see newer things, you'll see throwbacks and call outs and things like that, I'm sure, way into the future. So.
Because of its impact on the hacker culture, and because of how much you see it at conferences, the handles and the call-outs with the quotes and the stickers, and how much terminology from it is now terminology in the InfoSec world. I gotta give this a 5 out of 5 Gibsons. All right. Carolyn, it was awesome having you here tonight. This was a ton of fun chatting with you.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm so excited being the first one out the gate with this. So thanks for having me on. It was great to get to hang out, and met Mike for the first time. So now I have another hacker buddy to run into at some point. So
Absolutely.
If you go to Blue Team Con up in Chicago this upcoming year, I'm dragging Michael up there with me, so you'll get to meet him IRL.
That's right. Yeah, as of right now, we're planning on both heading up. So
well, I'm volunteering, so you'll definitely see me there.
nice. Oh, that'll be cool.
We're doing Brazilian Steakhouse, right?
Well, of course.
All right. Michael, do you have any last words?
No, yeah, this is cool. I like the format, the change that we're doing, and get to kind of delve back into pop culture.
I enjoyed it as well. I really love talking about this kind of stuff. It was a ton of fun. Carolyn, do you have anything you want to pitch, or any projects you're working on, or your Twitter, or anything you want people to follow?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you want to say hey in the Twitterverse, my handle is @CXStevens. I'm sure you'll see me floating around the hallways at a HackerCon near you. Yeah, other than that, just glad to be a part of it.
We're glad you're here.
All right, I hope everybody out here who's watching or is going to watch on YouTube or our Twitch stream enjoyed the show, and hack the planet.
Hack the planet.
Hack the planet.
Y'all have a great week.